I made a video about the F-15 and its place in War Thunder, specifically the F-15A. I had literally no idea what I was talking about. I said that the F-15A entered service in 1976 and then put up text that said 1974. That was a misunderstanding. I looked up when the F-15 entered service and it told me 1974, and I assumed that that was the A model, right? I assumed that that was the F-15A. It was not. That was the F-15B, which is a trainer. It's a two-seat trainer, and it makes sense why the trainer would come before the actual fighter. Okay, so yeah, the F-15A, I was right when I said it entered service in 1976. I was wrong when I thought that it didn't. I had this idea in my head that the F-16C necessarily meant AMRAAMs. It does not. The F-16C entered service in 1979, still with no countermeasures, actually, I think. I'm pretty sure. The F-15C multi-stage improvement program from 1985 was a refit to the F-15C that did some things like add countermeasures, I think. I'm pretty sure. Or maybe that was just the MSIP thing for the F-15As, and the F-15Cs did have them initially. It's a little unclear. I don't know how to do research. The MSIP F-15 from 1985 would sort of be the actual vehicle that it should be, right? Because the upgrade package was to let it carry AMRAAMs. It was to let it carry AMRAAMs, but it didn't. They didn't quite have the AMRAAMs like ready to go. You know, there was a good period of time where it was using Sidewinders and Sparrows still. So this is an F-16C with just Sidewinders and Sparrows and countermeasures. This would be the jet. This would be it. This is the jet basically in my head that I wanted, and I was confused. The F-15C, of course, it would go on to carry AMRAAMs. Not until the 90s, though. I think. I'm pretty sure. Yes, there's also the F-15D, which was a two-seat version of the C, pretty much, just what the B was to the A. It might have had countermeasures. I think it's possible that the two-seat F-15s had countermeasures before the single-seat ones. Just assume for any upgrade to the F-15C, there's a corresponding upgrade to the F-15D. Like when the F-15C started carrying AMRAAMs, so did the F-15D. And then the F-15J, 1981, it was an F-15D, basically. And it would go on to be upgraded in various ways, but like when it entered service in 1981, it could basically come in that state, like right now. It would basically just be an F-15D for the purposes of the game, but in the Japanese tech tree, which they totally could have done. And then there's, of course, the F-15E Strike Eagle, which I have coming off of the F-15D because it's a two-seat thing. It'd be two seats. I don't know whether or not it ever carried Sparrows, but when it entered service in 1988, again, there weren't AMRAAMs yet, so it definitely was not carrying AMRAAMs yet. It would, you know, but they could add the Strike Eagle and historically not have it carry AMRAAMs, and that could be historically accurate. Yeah, also, on top of this, Israel used like every goddamn F-15 known to man. Okay, they used literally F-15As, Bs, Cs, Ds, and also basically the E. They had the F-15I, which was a sort of a modification of the E. Okay, so I should talk about the comments now, because that's what this video was about, huh? Basically, the F-15A was not just made pointless by what they decided to add this update. It had been pointless, and I did not do enough research to know that. It literally could have been an F-16C MSIP, and that would have been... I did not realize that was pretty close to what I wanted. Yeah, so some of the comments, right? So there were a few different categories of comments. One category is basically that minor nations have it worse, so I should stop complaining. Which, no. I mean, yeah, they do, but like, I'm allowed to want a thing. I'm allowed to make a video about it. Sort of, and then there's another category of mostly just people agreeing with me, which is kind of funny considering the whole I did not know what I was talking about thing. Some of the comments, it's so interesting because they're just like about something else. Like there's this one that was like, don't forget that some of us don't play top tier and simply don't care. So F-15, AMRAAM or not, top tier gameplay is shallow and bad. Like, first of all of RRB is kind of shallow and bad right now. It's a played out game mode. It's been the same for as long as I've been playing it. If you don't care about top tier, that's fine. You don't have to watch a video about like some modern jet. Nobody's making you do that. But I guess nobody's making me respond to your comment in a video either. Oh yeah, this guy was just blatantly wrong. Who knew the Russians would do their damnedest to relegate the early A-10, F-14, F-16, F-15, and F-18s to fighting shit from ahead of their times? XD Lamau. But oh, how dare they do that to any commie planes, Lamau. Okay, so I want you to understand that the F-16C that we're getting is from 2006. And it's going to be fighting MiG-23 MLDs from 1978. So the truth is there's just too much battle rating compression. Like literally an A6 intruder can fight MiG-17s, non-afterburning MiG-17s, and it can launch all aspect AIM-9Ls at them that pull 30 Gs. It's just a problem of battle rating compression. This guy said we need more naval vehicles. Okay, buddy. Yeah, sure. The crybaby US main is strong with this one. Cope. I mean, like, yeah. Dead on. That's what I'm doing. I made a video about it. It did pretty well. It resonated pretty well with people. Gaijin cannot fill out the lower end of 4th gen fighters because many of the side nations are waiting for their Gen 4 Plus fighters. You misunderstand what Gaijin is doing. They want to get up to Gen 4th Plus as fast as possible so things like Gripen, Rafale, Typhoon can be added to side nations. If Gaijin is focusing on adding the F-15 and Su-27, they would add the base variants first. Same with F-18 and Su-33. That of course leaves the other nations so they can only use Fox 3 missiles while we're sitting here filling out only America and Russia. Gaijin also likes to add base variant, midlife variant, and then of course latest variant of fighters. So if we were to start with an F-15A/Su-27s, we would have to wait even longer for Gaijin to get to Gen 4 Plus. So the thing about that is you're saying Gaijin did this. So Gaijin did this to benefit minor nations, and what it is that they did to benefit minor nations was add an F-16C from 2006 with AIM-9Ms and a MiG-29 SMT with R-73s. And they're going to fight British Phantoms and Italian F-104s. And that's what they're doing to the benefit of minor nations, right? Basically, there were two things that they could have done. They could have done my thing, which screwed over the minor nations, or they could have done your thing, but in the way that they did it, which also screwed over the minor nations. They're doing this big leap so that they can have parity across nations, but without the parity across nations part. Gaijin is pro-Russia. They hate the US. We don't even get a US Marine Corps AV-8B. Russia first is Gaijin's motto. Well, I am not gonna lie and say that Gaijin does not have a streak of favoring Russia at top tier ground RB. They absolutely do. Top tier ground RB has been leaning Russian for years at this point. But I don't think air battles are quite to that point yet. The MiG-29 is very good, but so is the F-16. Right? The F-16 is kind of on par with the MiG-21s, kind of. Especially if you look at like the Japanese one that has the maneuverability of the lighter ones, but also has the Sparrows. I think in a way that the F-16C and the MiG-29 SMT will be balanced against each other. Not in a way that I'm gonna like, but I don't think Air RB has succumbed to the same Russian bias that Ground RB has. This guy said all US aircraft or ground vehicles are dead on arrival in War Thunder. Gaijin sells the hype of adding them and then nerfs them so badly no one can play them. Except for Russian vehicles, they normally get a game-breaking buff that takes Gaijin 6+ months to fix because they don't give a shit. So, that's simply untrue. Do you remember when the F-4E was the best jet in the game, and it was the only jet with flares? Do you remember in June of 2022 when the F-14 Tomcat was added and the scariest things it had to fight were MiG-23s? I think that the F-16C with AIM-9Ms and no G-limiter, it will be fighting a very scary combination of a MiG-29 airframe with R-73s and a helmet-mounted sight. but I don't think it's gonna be dead on arrival, you know, like the F-104 starfighters were. Yeah, anyway, that's the video that I made where and in reality I wanted this aircraft instead of this aircraft, and it would be good for minor nations too. Japan and Israel should get their F-15s as well. Hey, please subscribe so I can get in the Gaijin content creator program, so I can play some of these minor nations top tiers that I've heard so much about.